There was no safe place for Russian troops trying to sneak in, not in the trenches, not behind the bushes, not even when they thought they were invisible, because in every sector, Ukrainian snipers were already observing. One wrong move, one too revealing movement, and the infiltration turned into a fatal mistake. Not because of a major attack, but because the terrain was already controlled before the battle began. Snipers didn't chase. Snipers waited, and as the Russian troops tried to close in, they realized one thing too late. They weren't hunters, they were targets, already under observation. This was the silent war on the Ukrainian front lines, where gunfire wasn't always heard, but the pressure was felt with every step. And the question now wasn't who would attack, but who would dare move first. Reports from the front lines indicated that Ukrainian troops were encamped in trenches very close to Russian positions. This situation necessitated the operation's utmost caution. Any plan to approach and penetrate enemy cover could only be successful if long-range threats were completely controlled. To achieve this, Ukrainian snipers were deployed as silent guards. They monitored infiltration routes, trench mouths, and potential counterfire locations. Their primary task was not to establish open contact, but rather to ensure that Russian troops could not freely move. Once the sector was locked down, the Ukrainian assault team began to move. They advanced through the trenches at a measured pace, exploiting natural cover to approach enemy cover. Each step was taken with the assumption that any emerging threat would have already been detected by the snipers. Behind them, support elements maintained operational continuity. Rear lines were secured, communications maintained, and readiness maintained in case of sudden changes. Without support, success on the front lines risked being interrupted in a matter of minutes. This sequence demonstrates that modern warfare is not always determined by a major offensive. Instead, controlled silence is often a sign that operations are proceeding according to plan. Snipers, assault, and support work as a single system, interdependent and mutually protective.
Я прийшов курс, отримав сертифікат і вже...
This superiority didn't just emerge. In a recent development on the battlefield, Ukrainian snipers reportedly achieved an unprecedented feat, a confirmed long-range shooting record that underscores a significant shift in the way combat is conducted. This record is not just about distance. It symbolizes the level of terrain mastery, surveillance technology, and tactical discipline that Ukrainian sniper units now possess. In numerous operations, their presence has reportedly crippled numerous Russian troop movements, even before direct contact occurs. What makes this role crucial is its impact on the ground. Whenever a sector is identified as being under sniper surveillance, the Russian troops' rhythm immediately slows. Infiltration routes are abandoned, movements are delayed, and defensive positions become increasingly passive. The effects are felt not only physically, but also psychologically. This is where the connection between sniper records and trench operations becomes clear. Snipers who can control space from extreme distances provide a significant advantage to troops on the front lines. Assault teams can move more confidently, while support elements are able to maintain continuity of operations without facing undue pressure. In other words, this record is not an individual achievement, but rather part of a broader combat system. Snipers act as eyes and lock the terrain, assault as agents of penetration, and support as maintainers of the battle rhythm. This pattern explains why in many sectors, Russian troops struggle to find safe spaces. It's not because of constant major attacks, but because every step is constantly under surveillance. And when that surveillance is consistent, one thing becomes clear. Battles are not always won by who hits the hardest, but by who controls the terrain first, even before the first shot is fired. In this context, the sniper's role becomes crucial as a long-range cover layer. They are not just precision shooters, but also an early warning system for troops on the front lines. From protected positions, Ukrainian snipers monitor enemy movements long before assault troops are in contact. Any small changes, suspicious movement, shadows at the trench mouth, or activity on infiltration routes can be immediately identified and reported. This information gives troops at the front valuable time to adjust their positions and plans. The impact is felt immediately on the ground. With long-range surveillance, Ukrainian troops are not moving blind. They know when it is safe to advance, when to hold back, and which sectors are at risk. Snipers, in this sense, serve as an extension of the eyes for the entire unit. More than that, snipers also create a deterrent effect. Russian troops aware of their areas of cover tend to restrict movement and avoid open paths. Even without direct contact, this pressure is enough to secure the movement of Ukrainian troops in trenches and support lines. This is why snipers are referred to as invisible guards. They protect their troops not by being on the front lines, but by controlling threats from a distance, ensuring their every move is under unnoticed protection. In modern warfare, protection doesn't always mean shields or heavy vehicles. Often, the most effective protection comes from distance, silence, and consistent observation. And as long as that surveillance remains, troops on the front lines know one important thing: they are not moving alone. There are eyes constantly on the ground, even when the terrain seems deserted. The presence of snipers as long-range sentries is slowly changing the way troops move on the front lines. With consistent surveillance, decisions are no longer based on guesswork, but rather on the real situation on the ground. This is what makes Ukrainian operations in many sectors appear more measured and less surprising. Snipers act as the link between observation and action. The information they gather about movement patterns, guard change times, and even gaps in enemy surveillance is relayed to field command. From there, plans are adjusted, routes are chosen, and risks are minimized before troops actually move. The impact is clearly visible in the dynamics of battle. Russian forces are forced to play defensively, while Ukrainian forces gain the initiative without having to establish major contact. In many cases, simply the presence of snipers can secure a sector without unnecessary escalation. This underscores a crucial shift in modern warfare. Dominance doesn't always come from overwhelming force, but from control of information and surveillance. Snipers act as sentries, ensuring troops at the front are always one step ahead. But the question now is no longer how effectively Ukrainian snipers are keeping troops under control from a distance. The question is much bigger. If one sector can be locked down with just silent surveillance, what happens when this pressure is extended to the next sector? Because as long as snipers are watching, and troops continue to move under cover of long distances, the front line isn't truly still. It's preparing to change. And that change may already be starting in a place that hasn't been widely discussed. Behind every silent movement on the front lines, the Azov unit's snipers remain on guard, not to seek the spotlight, but to ensure that each advancing troop does not go it alone. In that silence, the terrain is controlled, pressure is built, and the direction of the battle is slowly determined from a distance. If you want to continue following tactical analysis, stealth movements, and the role of elite units like Azov without the hype, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for our next sector discussion. Because as long as the snipers are watching, the story on the front lines is not over.